I've had to really work on being adaptable and being able to pivot and change. And I think that, as a student right now, thinking about how to practice that is a really good idea. One thing I just want to emphasize is that, again, if you're a more traditional student and you're thinking about what's going to happen after you graduate, I think it's really important to think about your first job out of your undergrad or graduate experience as a stepping stone. It
Right.
doesn't have to be the dream job or the like forever job. I'm going to be at this, company forever.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're there for a significant amount of time and that you really love it. But I think that you can't possibly know exactly what is going to be fitting for you. You still have growing to do. You still have evolving to do. I think you have to figure out, what do I value? What do I like about this job? What don't I like about this job? And you just kind of keep taking those takeaways with you as you go to your next position. And so I think that, in working in career services and working with students who are about to graduate, there's just so much pressure. And I know that this pressure not only comes from yourself, but it probably comes from friends and family and many other like outside places. So I don't want to kind of dismiss any of that. That's all very valid to feel that. But I think it's really important to kind of think about, like, yeah, this is a stepping stone, right? So it may not be the forever, job for me. I may pivot industries entirely, after this first job, but it's okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UC San Diego Career Podcast, Designing Your Career in Life, hosted by the Career Center in partnership with Alumni Engagement. My name is Hassan Akmal. I'm the Executive Director of Career and Professional Development at the University of California, San Diego. I'm the host of the UC San Diego Career Podcast, featuring diverse professionals discussing provocative, career-related topics that inspire, transform, and empower you on a path to meaningful work. The topic of today's podcast is pivotal moments, shaping career paths through networking and transferable skills. This is episode 17 in season 6. The season's theme, skills as the new currency. Each season, we align a different theme to help you design a path forward in a time of disruption and uncertainty. I'm here with our guest, Mel Pearce. Mel is a relationship manager at Handshake with over 10 years of experience in career services and higher education. In her current role, she partners with top-tier education partners, consulting on product updates, student engagement, and ensuring the success of Handshake utilization across campuses. Mel is a 2012 graduate of the Master's in Professional Counseling program at Texas State University. In her previous position within higher education, Mel served as the Associate Director of Graduate Employer Education and Experiences at the University of Texas at Austin. Previous to that, she was a Senior Career Advisor at the University of California, Davis, and a Career Specialist at Ama La Vida. Mel's career path from counseling to higher education to ed tech has allowed her to foster transferable skill sets while always keeping students at the forefront of her work. Welcome, Mel. How's it going?
Hello, Hassan. How are you?
Doing
It's
well,
good.
doing well. I got
Good
a
to
comment. You're one of the very few people that says my name right. So I know it's not easy, but I really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. I try, and I hope I'm getting it correct.
You're nailing it. You're nailing it. Well, it's
Yay.
wonderful to see you again. The last time I saw you physically was in La Jolla.
That's right.
Sunny La Jolla. It's a little chilly these days, but it's still sunny. My whole team really enjoyed meeting you. It was such a lovely visit that you had, super informative presentation. They still talk about you joining us. And so thank you for joining us again. This time you're in Austin, I imagine, or are you on the road?
Right. I'm tuning in from Austin, from my hometown. Yep.
All right. This time for the UC San Diego Career Podcast. So it's a pleasure to have you here. We can get some insights and experiences that we can share with our audience. Our listeners are pretty much multifold, from students to recent alumni to other career professionals. to thought leaders, you name it. Faculty, I should tune in as well. So we're looking forward to chatting with you.
I'm excited. And I just wanted to say that I am just so thrilled that I get to be UC San Diego's relationship manager. I feel super grateful. You all are incredible to work with. I really value the partnership. And yeah, it was so fun to be in person and be in La Jolla. And I can't wait to visit again and to be back on campus.
No, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And, I told my team when you visited that it's just wonderful to have somebody that speaks our language, career services. So you were able to answer all of our questions. Drilling them at you for a while. You handled them with grace. So thank you so much. Maybe what we could do is, just start off with your background a little bit and talk to us about how you shifted from counseling to higher education.
Yeah, of course. So I live here in Austin, Texas now, but I grew up in Louisiana. I did my undergraduate at LSU in Baton Rouge, at Louisiana State University. When I was in college, honestly, and when we're talking about pivotal moments and talking about career journey, when I was in my undergrad, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't really understand my values and my personality and my skill sets, right? I was just trying to figure things out. So I really kind of bounced around major-wise, tried out a bunch of different things. I really loved psychology. So I ended up getting a degree in psychology. And after I graduated, I was still very lost. I really wasn't sure how to apply my degree. I really wasn't sure what pathway I wanted to pursue. But I ended up taking a life-altering decision to go and do some international travel. Wow. So I obtained work visas both in Australia and New Zealand, and I went abroad and I worked and I did odd jobs and kind of traveled around in between those jobs. And I think that was really helped to solidify who I was and what I was interested in doing. So when I came back to the US after a year and a half of being gone, I realized I really was just so fascinated with people. I loved working with people. I knew I wanted to take that background in psychology and apply it in some way to continue to work with people. I still didn't know exactly how to do that, but I became very interested in counseling. And so from there, I decided to pursue a master's degree in counseling and to kind of really explore the world of therapy and really kind of hone in on like my people skills in that way. So I did pursue a master's at Texas State University in professional counseling. And the pivotal moment for me, being in that master's program was really incredible. But I learned that I didn't really want to do the traditional route of therapy. That wasn't really for me. However, something pivotal for me in my grad experience was when there was actually somebody in my class that stood up and said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to leave my position at the Career Center. They're hiring for a graduate research assistant. If anybody's interested, you should apply." And that really piqued my interest. I had no idea that there was such a thing as career counseling and career advising. Yeah. And so I thought, oh, this is like really cool. I want to learn more about it. And so I ended up just applying for the position. I got it. And that really shaped the trajectory of my career path moving forward. I had an opportunity to start working with students one-on-one, doing career advising as a graduate student. And yeah, from there, I spent the next 10 years in career services working with students at the undergraduate level, graduate level. I dabbled in employer relations as well, but I was able to really take some of the skills and theoretical viewpoints that I kind of gained in my undergraduate experience and in my graduate experience and take that into career advising and career counseling.
That's amazing. And no surprise you got it, right? I don't think any of our listeners are surprised that you got that position. But, I will say that when you're when you're studying things like therapy or like I was in public health, for example, there's a hidden skill set, I think, beyond career readiness, compassion, right? Because in career services, you have to be passionate about the work. Because I argue that career services is one of the hardest departments to work for, if not the hardest. And right? If you don't care about students getting jobs, they're not going to get jobs, and especially those students that lack confidence. I think probably a lot of that compassion and some of that empathy that came from some of your earlier trajectories lended itself to career services. So that's amazing. And also traveling, New Zealand, Australia, traveling is so transformative. I bet that helped you a little bit with your career and life vision. You might have heard the story of Mark Zuckerberg seeking advice from Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs said, and here's my advice, go to India for a month and come back and you'll have the answer. And apparently Mark Zuckerberg actually really did it and came back and started, Facebook. So anyway, fun facts, fascinating. I think your journey has really been shaped from a combination of all that, your self-discovery, the adaptability, and a commitment to student success, which you still show also to employer success. And you're able to kind of, marry the two, the employer lens and also the student lens, because you've seen both in your career as a career coach. But speaking of transferable skills, how do you see them playing a role in career development, especially in today's rapidly evolving landscape?
Yeah. Well, it's funny to talk about transferable skills when I'm talking about myself, because I'm so used to, in my time in career services, teaching transferable skills and talking to students about like how to identify your transferable skills. So it's funny when like the roles are reversed, but they are so fundamental in your career journey. I think that like as a college student, right? Like if you're at, listening today and you're, at university, if you're at UC San Diego, you're in classes, you're doing things today that are going to be transferable to what you're going to be doing once you graduate. And it's really imperative that you start to identify what those are and that you're able to convey them to other people. Right. And sometimes it's hard to identify our own skills, right? If you say, like, oh, I have a part-time job, or I'm in this internship, or I'm doing this class project, you may not like really start to equate like what those transferable skills are, but it's really important to start identifying them. It's really important to be able to like describe them to people. And so, my work in career services, my first job after graduation from my master's degree, I didn't really have much of a professional network. I never really had a full-time role. I didn't really have like my foot in anywhere. So I had to really figure out, how do I take, some of the skills that I've had from past part-time positions, from my travel experience, from my master's degree program, from the student orgs I've been a part of, and kind of showcase how they can be transferable to the job. And so I think that if you consider the fact, okay, let's say I worked a part-time job in my undergrad experience in a coffee shop, right? So I had to figure out like, right, what are all the skills? And you may just think like, oh, this is just, my part-time job and it's what I do to make money. But it's also where you're gaining a whole lot of skills, communication skills, problem solving skills, right? Discipline, all of these things that you have to apply to whether it be a part-time job, like I said, a school project, an internship, experiential learning opportunity, your student org, or any extracurricular activities. So one of the things, just to kind of give you an example, because sometimes it's like, what is a transferable skill? And like, what do you actually mean by that? But let's just take like communication skills, for example. These are what we call soft skills. A technical skill would be like, I can code, right? Or I know Python. I know, I have really advanced skills in Excel or whatever it is. That's a technical or a hard skill, but a soft skill is really difficult to convey to people. So, for example, when I came to Handshake, I had spent 10 years in higher education. So switching over from higher education to tech was a leap, right? Like I had to figure out how to tell Handshake, hey, I have all these skills from higher education that could be transferable into tech. You may not see it right away, but like, let's take communication skills, for example. In my time in higher education and career services, I worked with students in all different levels. I had to figure out how to adapt my communication style. If I was having an advising appointment with a first year student, right, who's just getting settled on campus, that's really going to differ than a senior or maybe even a master's student, right, that I'm working with who maybe is a non-traditional student and has had a full-time job before.
Totally.
Those conversations and sort of the approach to my advising is going to be very different. And I have to figure out how to prepare for that. I have to figure out how to sort of adjust for that. The same thing is true in my work in customer success, right? When I have a book of business of 30 something schools or institutions.
Just 30.
Yeah. Just 31 to be exact. But yeah, so there I have small schools, I've got large institutions, I've got public, I've got private. Right. So their student bodies are different, their needs are different. They may be in a time of flux where there's different hiring going on. They might be moving to different leadership. Right. So I have to take all these things into account and adjust my communication style. Right. So that's just like a very small example of how to share with an employer. Here's my past experience and how I adapted my communication style. I may not have the exact experience that you're looking for, but it's transferable, what I've done. So
That's
in
right.
this case, if you communicated with customers in that coffee shop job for your part-time position while you're in school, how do you share with an employer that same communication style that you could take working with customers in a full-time role? So
Yeah.
I think it's learning just how to describe your transferable skills and getting
Yeah.
very confident and sharing them with people.
Yeah. Wow. That's a excellent answer. I think that's probably one of the best answers I've heard on a question like that. So I actually think, and especially with your background as coaching graduate students too. So the number one requested area or program that I get from graduate students or PhDs is career transitioning or advancement within their current organization or pivoting to a new organization. And the secret to my success coaching those students is aligned with what you said in terms of transferable skills, focusing on those and being able to tell that story. And unfortunately, it's difficult to do, right? Career services folks, we can hang with the tech companies, right? So I'm announcing that to all the tech companies out there. Career services can hang with you all,
Listen up.
right?
Yeah.
Just like Mel, because career services is fast paced. And,
Yeah.
and so is tech. I love those examples. And also, with your portfolio, you're physically traveling to all those different locations. You're physically meeting the teams. You're building relationship skills. You're leveraging a lot of those soft skills that, may not be something that comes across on a resume, right? They say a resume of the future is not a resume of your career, but a resume of your life. And it's more of a portfolio of experiences. And I think you're now actually putting into action with a very hands-on approach, which also I think lends itself to your success in managing all those relationships in that portfolio. But yeah, I love those examples. An excellent job. So thank you for sharing that valuable perspective, especially for our students who are asking us, these days, like, how do what should I do? I'm a computer science major. AI is disrupting my future. Technical what can experience, I do? But skills that will make me future proof, for example. And so they're looking for these adaptable, transferable Not easy skills to tackle when the world is changing so fast. But let's dive into some of the networking pieces, right? So networking, how networking shaping careers. When I last looked, networking was the number one way for students to get a job. I think number two was the career center, and number three was faculty referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Number four was getting the job on your own, I think. But how have you seen networking impact career paths, both in your own journey and also in your interactions with so many students and professionals? I know you oversee a large list of colleges and universities from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. So you're not just in one area, you're all across the US. But what can you share with us?
Yeah. Well, it may not be exactly what folks listening want to hear, but networking is absolutely essential in your career journey. There's no way around it. I tend to be more introverted myself.
Yeah.
So networking and the idea of networking, if anybody else out there resonates with it, it feels overwhelming. It feels like not natural sometimes. It feels like, oh, this is going to be an awkward conversation, right? Like
Yeah.
there's all these things that come with kind of this anxiety of like, oh, the networking. But I think we kind of overplay the word networking and we make it so stuffy, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way. But I kind of think about like if you're learning, I don't know, like it's kind of like job searching and career exploration is kind of like a dance. You have to
Yeah.
learn the choreography and the steps. And
That's
part
right.
of that is to figure out how to connect with people and talk with people. The more that you practice it, the better you will get. And I think the less sort of weight that you put on it, the more natural it will feel. And the more that you'll want to kind of engage in networking in general. But just to kind of give you an example, I kind of shared with you after my graduate program, I knew I wanted to get into career services. I had, worked in the career services office as a graduate student, but I didn't have any professional network. I think for those students who are listening right now who are maybe like in your junior and senior year and you're thinking like, oh, I want to start looking for a full-time job, but I don't have a network, right? Like, of
Yeah.
course you don't. Don't worry. Like, you shouldn't, at this point you
Yeah.
haven't had, or, if you're a more traditional student, you likely have not had like a full-time role yet. So network and your professional network grows naturally as you just age, as you evolve, as
That's
you
right.
kind of the longer that you're in the workforce. But networking is something that you can start as an undergraduate student, as a graduate student. It's never really too late to start networking. And again, I just want to emphasize how organic it can be.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this whole big production of like, oh, I got to go out there and network with people. Start with your own network, right? Start with the folks that you know around you, whether that be your supervisor at your coffee shop part-time job. Maybe it's your internship supervisor, maybe it's a professor on campus, maybe it's a career advisor, maybe it's an alumni. They are great to tap into, like somebody who graduated just before you. It doesn't matter. You can kind of weave that web of networking like once you just start with one person. So you start with one
Yeah.
person. I would say you can start to branch out from there. And so like, one person could lead you to another person who can lead you to another person, right?
Right.
And I think too is that approaching it from just a place of curiosity. People love to talk about themselves. So
Yeah.
if you ask someone to like, hey, I want to like hear about like your journey after you graduated from UCSD. Of
Yeah.
course, people would be like, well, I'm flattered. Like anytime I get asked for an informational interview, I truly am flattered.
Yeah.
If someone's not flattered and they don't have time for you, who cares? Move on to the next person, right? That's not the
Right.
person for you anyway to talk to. So I think that you kind of have to just kind of take it from an angle of, I want to learn about people's trajectory. I want to learn about their pathways. I want to kind of approach networking just from a place of curiosity. And the more that I just kind of organically do that and I just make it a point to just, talk to people and learn, I think like the more that you'll find your network just sort of expands naturally. But I would make it a point to do it as an undergraduate student, as a graduate student, and making sure that you're making time to reach out to folks and have those conversations. I'll just kind of give you an example
Yeah.
of most of like my jobs that I have gotten have been through the networking
Working.
experience. So, my first job outside of Texas State University, I wanted to work at UT Austin in the career services, like one of the career services centers, but I didn't know anyone. And so I had to do informational interviews. And I did that by like looking up people's emails just on like UT's website.
Yeah.
I used LinkedIn and I reached out to people and I just said, hey, I'm really interested in getting into career services. I see that you are a senior career advisor at UT Austin. Can we have a conversation? And that's really how it started. And then the rest of the positions that I received were actually through networking experiences at conferences. So we in the career services world, NACE is a really big conference, the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And that's literally for my next three positions.
Yeah.
I just was talking to people at a conference and just one thing led to another. And it becomes a little bit more easier and more organic, with each job that you take and with each
That's
evolution of
right.
your career. So
Yeah.
it's a little bravery, but I think that it is essential for your career journey.
That's right. Start with one cup of coffee. Can we do a quick cheers?
Yeah.
Are you drinking something right
Yeah.
now, Mel?
Yes, I
Let's
am.
do a quick cheers to all the baristas out there.
Oh, yes. I
Right.
was one.
Talk about organic ways of meeting people.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Cheers.
Yeah, I loved my coffee shop job.
I had to throw that in there because what the folks don't know is Mel used to be a barista and I was a barista as well. So that was one of my first job was teaching tennis, but my first real job, student employment on campus was in fact at UC San Diego when it was called Espresso Roma was a barista, and organically you meet tons of people from the chancellor to faculty. And that's a great way for you to build your network. So I think those are excellent examples. I will say, for the record out there, students and recent alum and anyone looking for a job, your network matters. People are going to look at your LinkedIn profile. If you have 200 followers, it's not enough. Okay. Especially if you're doing informational interviews, they want to know that you're networking with people, especially in the kinds of jobs that you're looking for. If you're looking for an employer relations job and you don't have a big network, then they're going to be questioning, what are you going to bring to the table? So I love those points that you shared, building authentic connections, approaching networking with a genuine mindset. I think those are some key takeaways for our audience. And as we start to begin to wrap up our episode, do you have any additional thoughts or advice for our listeners, especially those navigating their career paths in this time of disruption and uncertainty?
Yeah, totally. I know we are in like a very interesting place, post-pandemic, and things are changing very rapidly in the labor market. Technology is kind of full steam ahead and really changing things as well and disrupting things. I think that to be nimble, to be adaptable in a changing marketplace is going to be essential. I am a creature of habit. I like routine. I like predictability. I've had to really work on being adaptable and being able to pivot and change. And I think that, as a student right now, thinking about how to practice that is a really good idea. One thing I just want to emphasize is that, again, if you're a more traditional student and you're thinking about what's going to happen after you graduate, I think it's really important to think about your first job out of your undergrad or graduate experience as a stepping stone. It
Right.
doesn't have to be the dream job or the like forever job. I'm going to be at this, company forever.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're there for a significant amount of time and that you really love it. But I think that you can't possibly know exactly what is going to be fitting for you. You still have growing to do. You still have evolving to do. I think you have to figure out, what do I value? What do I like about this job? What don't I like about this job? And you just kind of keep taking those takeaways with you as you go to your next position. And so I think that, in working in career services and working with students who are about to graduate, there's just so much pressure. And I know that this pressure not only comes from yourself, but it probably comes from friends and family and many other like outside places. So I don't want to kind of dismiss any of that. That's all very valid to feel that. But I think it's really important to kind of think about, like, yeah, this is a stepping stone, right? So it may not be the forever, job for me. I may pivot industries entirely, after this first job, but it's okay to kind of use that as a time for trial and error,
Yeah.
and figuring out what you like and what you don't like. I think, yeah, I mean, what I want to say about that too is that I think that you could really tap into a lot of resources right now to kind of help figure out, like, well, what do I think that I value? What industries do I think I might be interested in? I think it's a good idea to start, going, like, hitting up your career center, like scheduling some appointments with career advisors. I'm going to have to plug Handshake too, right? Like, this
That's
is a
right.
place where you can make appointments with your career advisor. It's also a place to attend employer events, to attend career fairs. And again, I think a lot of times as students, you put a lot of pressure on, like, I'm going to go to this career fair and I got to land this job. No, maybe you just go to explore and to talk
Right.
to recruiters and to
See what's
learn
out
and
there.
to, like,
Yeah.
you don't have to make it so much pressure, but as long as you're actively doing the things, you're looking on Handshake for jobs and for internships, you're following employers, you're filling out your profile, you're adding your resume, you're actively doing things to kind of contribute towards your career journey. But all the while, kind of like circling back here, is just to make sure that, like, you're staying adaptable and you're
Right.
open to different things that you maybe didn't think that would be right for you before, but also just being open to trial and error. And you try something, you try an internship and you hated it. Great. you learned something, right? Like, sorry that it was a bad experience, right? For the 6 months time or 3 months time or whatever it was, but you learned that company, that industry is not for you. Or maybe it was a fabulous experience, and it helped solidify some things about maybe I do want to be with this company, or maybe I do know that this is the industry for me, but you tried it and then you had some takeaways either way.
Yeah. Wow, those are fantastic. She's dropping nuggets every. I hope you guys are taking copious notes. Okay, a couple things. So I listened to an interview by the former CEO of LinkedIn, Jeff Weiner. So when you mentioned longevity, I wanted to just plug just the concept of longevity, and it's different in different industries, right? In tech, longevity could be a year, but I'll tell you, even the former CEO of LinkedIn, Jeff Weiner, said what they ask for is like a year and a half, right? So
Yeah.
nowadays I see people just throwing in the towel, week notice, 2 week notice, and things like that. And longevity matters on a resume. So you want to pay attention to that. I mean, what can you possibly have done in 6 months or a year in terms of demonstrating impact to a company? Let's say you're applying to Handshake, you have to demonstrate impact. So keep that in mind. Obviously, in higher education, I argue it's much more, right? You got to be at a position 2, 3 years, 4 years, to really show something. Another thing that actually the current CEO of LinkedIn, for those of you that like podcasts, I follow his, it's called The Path. And what they did is he talks about it in one of his latest episodes, that they actually combed through all the data on LinkedIn and they looked at patterns and trends in terms of trajectory. Like, is there a correlation? Is there a linear, path to certain job functions and pathways? And what they found was that, I guess, not surprising enough, we know careers are no longer linear, but across the board, with the exception of obviously pre-med and some of the engineering paths and things like that, it was actually no correlation. So it was a zigzag path. And to Mel's point, if you take the time to actually talk to those folks in your network and ask them and pick their brain, as you build your network, you'll understand kind of their reasoning on what were their pivotal moments and what inspired them to take audacious moves and things like that. So I think there's a lot of truth in what you said. I'm also going to go on a limb because I'm a career strategist, Mel. So I'm going to say that although you love routine and although you had to adjust in tech, I'm going to say it's the entrepreneur reality, and everyone's an entrepreneur. And even if you have one company that you work for, they're just your biggest client. So I'm going to say you're an entrepreneur in the making. One day, 10 years from now, we're going to just accidentally cross paths at the airport in New Zealand. And you're going to be like, Hassan, I'm teaching my own classes now. Go to melpearce.com or whatever it is. I'm planning that soon for you. I'm telling you, I know an entrepreneur when I see one.
Love that. I have to consult with you about it.
Yeah, you'll see. You'll see. So I know many of our listeners are students and employers who engage with the Handshake platform. And I got to give a shout out to Handshake. Handshake is popping with activity. It's clearly the best. It's my most valued platform, especially for jobs and connecting with our staff. It's been wonderful in my career. But what can you share in terms of maybe some new exciting innovations or features coming their way this year or in the years to come?
Yeah.
That you're able to share.
Oh, totally. Yeah, we have a lot of exciting things coming down the line. I'm thrilled to share them. Thank you for the kind words. I too have been a very long time Handshake user from my time in career services. Implemented when UT Austin back in 2014. So have been a long time user of Handshake myself, and I just kind of think it's such a valuable resource for college students. So we're always innovating. We're always kind of progressing, always trying to kind of, just try to really come up with some really, really exciting things that will be engaging for students. So the first thing I wanted to share is we do have a brand new student home feed that's going to be coming down the line, both on web and on mobile app. So for those of you students who are listening, if you don't have the Handshake app on your phone, I highly recommend downloading it. We are going to have a really sleek new feed that'll be coming through. So this is going to be things like recordings from employers to learn about their company, to get, career advice from employers, from alumni, job recommendations based on relevancy algorithm, reminders for career fairs that are coming up, employer events that are happening on campus, peer-to-peer conversations, right? Reaching out to other peers who might be, in career exploration or, in their own job search. lots of really, really cool things. And it's just going to kind of mirror a feed experience that you're really used to on TikTok, Instagram, these types of things. So we're thrilled about that. That's coming. So definitely download the app on your phone. The other thing that we're, working towards are just creating more community in Handshake. So we'll be kind of formulating something called groups where students can join a private or an open group. So let's say, UC San Diego consulting group, and maybe it's just for
Nice.
your campus and you want to exchange resources. I have a case interview coming up. What do you recommend? Right. And people can throw out resources and kind of share things as a group. Women in tech, or maybe it's a group around a class that you're in and you exchange some advice and resources and things like that with one another. So that is coming down the line. So I think that's going to be really cool to connect with other people, whether it be at UCSD or, network wide. So other universities and other students. The other thing that I wanted to share with you too is, there's lots coming down the pike, and I think that we're really kind of leaning into AI. I think that most of you as
Yeah.
students are really used to ChatGPT and really leveraging AI. Our hope is that you will do that in your career exploration, career development, in your job
Right.
search.
That's right.
So we are going to be launching Coco, who's our career co-pilot.
Yeah.
And so this is your ability to come into Handshake and ask Coco questions.
Yeah.
How do I become a data scientist? How much money does a data scientist make? Am I a good fit for this role? What's the best way to apply for this job? Right? So
Yeah.
there's so many resources out there. And as a student, you're probably just so overwhelmed and so inundated with information. Just ask Coco, right? You come to Handshake, you ask Coco a question, and Coco is going to direct you to where you need to go. So we're really excited about bringing AI into the platform too. So stay tuned for some of these things. Lots more coming too, but those are the little tidbits I wanted to drop for you.
Love it, love it. Yeah, and some of the Coco dialogue was stemmed from one of the strategic events that you invited us to. I was talking to Christine about that, and I was happy to be a part a little bit of that initial task force on AI. But yeah, Handshake is definitely a go-to for lots of resources. And if you hear what Mel's saying, I mean, you could ask Coco, what group should I join? Let's say there's a group on AI, a mastermind, a data analytics group. And that's also a great place for you to network with like-minded folks. So that's wonderful. I love the concept of community. Yeah, for those organic conversations. So I'm going to build off of something you said a little bit earlier in terms of your first job doesn't have to be sort of your last job. So there's a saying, don't get married to your first job. Right? I know you kind of agree with that, but could you maybe expand for the audience a little bit what that might mean or look like in terms of their career? In some cases, they may just not have enough experience. And what I'll encourage them to do is like, hey, why don't you just get your foot through the door and go for what I call a bridge job? And that's kind of like the stepping stone to that next job, kind of use that job as their greatest asset for that next step. Anything you can expand on that in terms of students that are kind of focused on getting that job at graduation, whatever it is, and kind of worried that that will be their career in life and that's not where they want to be.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I think that you think about your first job out after graduation as a stepping stone, right? And maybe you do land that dream job, and that's wonderful and that's amazing. But I think that more often than not, you are still learning about yourself. Again, you're still evolving. You may need to consider a bridge job, like you mentioned, and I would consider that as just such a powerful learning experience, right? To be able to gather more professional skill sets, to learn a little bit more about yourself, develop your network, right? Because as a college student, again, your network is very limited. Once you get that first job out, then you're really organically starting to like truly build a professional network. And so some of this just happens with these bridge positions or stepping stone positions. And I think that you can build from there. I think from there, you also, no matter what you're doing, whether it's your part-time job now while you're in school, whether it's an internship, whether it's experiential learning opportunity, whether it's volunteer work, whether you have a part-time job on campus, maybe it's a stepping stone or a bridge job, whatever it is, the only thing that I just wanted to kind of emphasize is do it to the best of your ability, right? Even like, let's say it's the coffee shop job that I mentioned that I had as an undergrad, or maybe you're working on campus in the career center. do that job well, as is, and come, like, show up, be prepared, contribute, right? Because all of these people become part of your network. You're probably going to need a reference, or a referral or recommendation, right? All of these people are watching, what you're doing. And if you're really kind of bringing something to the table, then you're really truly kind of building out a network of people who definitely want to help you because you've helped them, right? It's a two-way street. And you're going to need those people, right? You
That's
will.
right.
Just do, as you're kind of moving along, you need to have referrals if you want to move to another job, or you want to get that first job, right? So I just kind of, all that to say is that really contribute. And in that way, you're also building out those transferable skills, and you actually have tangible examples to bring to an interview. Whereas if you just scroll TikTok all day in your on-campus position, you don't really have anything tangible to talk about in an interview, because it's like, I just did the bare minimum. I did my homework while I was at my job. I didn't care about it that much. But
Yeah.
if you say, you know what, like, I found an inefficiency in the process at the front desk of the career center, I kind of implemented a new plan for checking in students for appointments. And then you have like a tangible example to bring to an interview, which I think will be very powerful in the interview experience as you're trying to find that first job out, because of those transferable skills and because of those tangible examples that you have. So I just kind of feel very passionate about, like, bring your all to your job, no matter what, because you're going to need those examples. You're going to need those people to be your mentors, to be your references, to give you recommendations. And I think you have to really think about, it needs to be a two-way street.
What are you going to hang your hat on, right? In terms of standing out, your resume, as beautiful as it might look, not going to tell that full story. And so when you get to that interview, you've got to demonstrate impact. Publish an article. Did you take the department to the next level? What lasting change? What did you improve? I remember looking at the data of 4 or 5 of the top things that employers look for on a cover letter. And one of them was, what's your most recent job? But it was coupled with, what did you improve there? So they wanted to know, what have you done recently, but what did you improve? The second thing was, what do you excel in, right? What do you do better than everybody else? I think the third thing was, what did you do that was innovative? Did you pioneer something? Did you launch a new program? Did you spearhead it? Whatever it is. And they're looking for qualified words here, right? Not like I managed or something that was passive. They want to hear that you spearheaded something from concept to delivery. I think the fourth thing, what are you bringing to the table? What value are you bringing? And then the last thing was, how do your personal and professional goals align with the mission of that organization specifically? So I think those are really, really important points. And I like that you highlighted some of those. Career services folks can talk forever. I'm going to ask you just 1 or 2 more questions. Let's talk a little bit more about nonlinear paths, right? So the role of trial and error in your career, but also I would love if you can share some, what I call in our career and life design workshops, we do peaks and valleys, right? So what are some peaks in terms of like times where you felt valued, where you felt connected, maybe you felt a sense of joy or happiness, inspiration, etc. And then some valleys in your life, maybe a time where the imposter syndrome kicked in, or like, I remember one for me was when people were saying, "Oh, you're not going to make UCLA's tennis team, or you're not going to be able to be a pro tennis player." And I was aspiring pro tennis player. So those were moments where I, had to believe in myself. Those could be pivotal moments, or what I call standing moments in my book, but pivotal moments in your life that helped you design your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I want to definitely hone in on non-linear career pathways. I don't want to say that linear pathways don't exist. They do, right? Let's say you always knew you wanted to be an engineer. Your undergrad is in civil engineering, and you go on to become a civil engineer, right? Like, okay, that's pretty
That's
linear
right.
as it gets, right? But it's pretty rare, honestly. And I can say that with the confidence because of working in career services for so long, and now working at Handshake and kind of seeing this. Nonlinear pathways are the norm. And so I think as long as you kind of wrap your mind around the fact that, like, I may not be doing something that's exactly related to my major. I might, but it may not be a direct pathway. And I might have all these twists and turns on my career journey, right? Maybe I take that bridge job or that stepping stone first job, and then I change industries altogether. That's okay. That is part of this non-linear kind of like bobbing and weaving pathway. And one thing I just want to mention is that may never stop, right? Like you're always, kind of evolving. You're always learning things. When I was in graduate school, I honestly felt like a little bit of a fish out of water. I thought I really wanted to go into counseling, into traditional therapy. I got to grad school and I was like, wow, I really love the content. I love my classmates. I love my professors. I love this information. I just don't think I want to apply it in this way that everybody else does. And so when I found career counseling, to me, that was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that was available, right? That kind of like opened up a door for me. And then, I was in higher education, but I kind of even pivoted within career services. I worked with undergrads for a little bit. I worked with grad students for a bit. I dabbled in employer relations. And then I took a big turn. I came into tech, right? Still tangential to higher education. But that was very different for me. And did I think that I would go to graduate school for professional counseling and then be here today as a relationship manager at Handshake? No way. I
Sure.
had no idea that is where I was going to be, but I couldn't be happier with sort of like the twists and turns. And those twists and turns will probably continue to happen, in my life. And so I think that's important to kind of embrace and, like the sooner that you kind of like wrap your mind around the fact that like, there are going to be all of these non-linear moments in my life where things kind of are going all over the place. I think the better off you'll be in kind of allowing that to kind of happen organically.
And I gotta stress the importance of having that career and life vision in your mind. Now, listen, it doesn't, you don't have to know exactly what that picture looks like, but maybe you have this view, this evolving worldview of kind of where you want to be. Maybe it's that house in Portugal and you're working remotely and you have a family or whatever it is. And, with every kind of win in your life and loss, right? Because you learn from those losses, right? Those are opportunities. You're putting a pixel up there, and then that image is kind of getting together. But if you don't have any kind of idea in terms of that image, then you don't know what direction to go. You don't know you're not going towards your North Star or your true north, right? Because you might be going south. You got to kind of stop and you got to kind of reset. Take that trip to Australia, right? And think about, look, if I want to be here and the path that I'm on right now is taking me here, then I got to make some changes. What's the nexus that joins all your linear and non-linear careers together? Maybe it's serving people. We have time for one quick lightning round. And I want to ask you the following. So one career hack and one life hack. If you could only provide an example, one for each, one or two examples for each, what would they be?
I think this is great, and I hope my hacks are pretty tangible for you. But in terms of a career hack, I think especially as a student, it's carving out time for career development, right? You come to UC San Diego, you have, however many hours of classes that you're taking, and that fills up your calendar, right? But nobody is like mandating that you fill up your calendar with like career exploration or job searching, right? So you're going to have to take it upon yourself to work that into your calendar. And I mean, actually put it into your calendar, right? So like, I would say like maybe you've got a break in between classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 1 p.m. Put that in your calendar that you're going to be doing whatever career exploration. Maybe that's the phase that you're in. You're trying to figure out like what job you might be even interested in or what industry you might be interested in. Or maybe you're, a junior or a senior and your time for, career is going to be job searching, but you actually schedule it into your calendar. And then you use that time to hop on Handshake, right? Look for jobs, look for internships, connect with employers, register for career fairs, register for employer events, right? Like look at the resource library from UC San Diego. Like you're kind of really utilizing this time. Maybe utilize that time to do an informational interview, right? Or, I don't know, like, connect with a mentor, connect with alumni, but whatever it is, you've kind of scheduled it in so that that it's something that, that you've got on your calendar, it's a to-do item and you're doing it weekly and you're doing it consistently. As far as a life hack, this is also kind of created, similar to career related, but I think that in life, you should never stop informational interviewing. So even though I've been in my career for quite some time now, it's really important for me to continue to have those curious conversations, right? To have informational interviews, to reach out to people who, maybe some of my colleagues at Handshake, and like learn a little bit more about what was your career path like? What does a typical day look like for you? I think it's really important, as you're thinking about professional development and as you're thinking about like, yeah, where do I want to see myself next? You're asking these questions, you're getting curious, and you're always thinking about career development, no matter what stage you're in. So making sure that you make time for that, even, as a working professional.
Wow, I love that. Mel's dropping some gems again. So I think Mel's kind of coining a term, career buffer time, or so like yeah.
Yeah.
But I value that piece of advice. I think probably more than everything else, because I always say that students today, they spend more time putting together IKEA furniture than they do really talking about their career. But in order to design your life, design the space to design your life, and that is that sanctuary of self-reflection. And sometimes, to your point about having informational interviews, sometimes those informational interviews are with yourself. It's those conversations that you go on a walk and you think about your life, and you listen to that inner voice. But I got to thank you for joining us today, Mel. Mel, this was fantastic. I know our listeners are enjoying it, and they probably want to get in touch with you. So what a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're crazy busy, and a shout out to the amazing folks at Handshake. How can listeners get in touch with you?
On LinkedIn is great. I'm at Melanie Pearce, so Melanie. Last name is Pearce, Pearce. So connect with me. I love to connect with students, and that's a great place to get in touch. And don't forget to download your app, your Handshake app. We've got some cool things coming out, so really excited to share those with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mel, for joining us. Today's conversation with the lovely Mel Pearce showcased the transformative influence of pivotal moments that help define our professional trajectories. Mel's journey sheds light on the fusion between strategic connections and transferable skills. From her roots in counseling to the dynamic landscape of higher education, now she's a key player in ed tech at an incredible organization. #Handshake. Mel's experiences underscore the significance of transferable skills as the new playbook for career success. In a world where skills are the currency of progress, Mel's narrative serves as a compass, guiding us through the evolving playbook of career development. As we navigate this season's theme, skills are the new currency, let Mel's insights inspire you to view your career as not a predetermined route, but as a new path that paints the picture of your professional career and life journey. Remember, this is both career and life design. The reality is that every moment is special, some pivotal. Something as simple as kindness or giving someone a cupcake, right, might plant a seed for a new opportunity for a lasting friendship. Every interaction matters. Kindness matters, every experience, and they collectively become brushstrokes shaping your career and life canvas, a centerpiece in the interior design of your career and life. Thank you again, Mel. I leave you all with this message. Every single one of you has a purpose. It's developed from your passion. And when one is on point with that purpose, it can help change the world for the better. What's your motivation? Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You were awesome. I think
Oh,
that was excellent.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah.